Hello and welcome to Every Horror Movie on Netflix, the show where we watch, review, discuss, and talk about every horror movie on Netflix from A to Z. I'm Chris, back again with Patrick.
Hello, fresh out of my tubby.
And Steven.
Hi.
And once again, our very special guest, Allison with a Y.
Hello.
Back from, we're all back from our little adventure at the horror convention, back to our regularly scheduled excavations on the Netflix catalog.
Having finally come down from the high of interviewing fucking D motherfucking Wallace on the goddamn spot.
That was amazing. My heart is still beating.
I can tell you were just
I'm glad it's still
exuding
beating.
excitement about that.
I'm glad you're still alive.
You were glowing in those moments, Chris.
He was. We have a few beautiful moments of him where he looks like he is with child while talking with D Wallace.
He was with D. Wallace's child.
He's not just glowing, he has the glow.
The little maternal glow. It's contagious. So, what the hell did we watch this week, guys?
We watched Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer.
We did not.
Well, Steven and I did. And
We
that was
also watched it quite
we've
recently.
watched it.
That was a
actually.
fascinating film. That not on Netflix, though, I don't think, right?
No.
Oh, horrors. We can't talk about it then.
So the movie we watched this week for the show...
Wait, can we talk about Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer for a minute?
Yeah, sure, but let me just say that this episode isn't about Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer.
No, that was a misdirect on my part.
We watched Creep, so
Yes.
stay tuned for discussion of Creep. But yeah, let's talk about Henry, Patrick.
Oh, I mean, it's fresher than you guys than mine. What did you think? I mean,
I've seen it a couple of times, but it had been quite a while. I think Chris put it best when he texted me. Great film! Exclamation point. I guess. I kind of feel the same way. It's like it wasn't. There's nothing in it. I mean, there's some shocking scenes in it, but it feels like a movie that I can't believe hadn't been made sooner than that. Like I've spent so much time like reading about serial killers and watching movies like this and like putting myself in their or trying to put myself in their shoes and figure out like what their day-to-day life must look like.
Yeah.
Because I want to be one.
I was shook by that movie. I was shook afterwards.
Shook or shaken?
I was shook.
Shooken.
I was shook.
Well, of
It's an
course,
expression the kids use.
we watched it on the Joe Bob Briggs show, and Joe Bob prefaced the movie really building it up as like, oh, this is an extremely disturbing movie. It was banned for years by the ratings boards and everything, and I was bracing myself for something that was like trying to be too edgy.
No, it's edgy. I mean, it's not even edgy. It's just disturbing in a much subtler way.
It's a portrait of the banality of evil. And
yeah.
It has an element where it feels really real, which I think is why I was expecting something maybe a little more disturbing. Because I'm also like Steven, I know a lot about serial killers and stuff like that. And so it didn't seem like something I hadn't at least heard about before.
Yeah, it doesn't try to shock you through the depictions of violence or killings or gore, but more through the casualness with which Henry commits those acts.
Yeah.
It just, I don't know. It was one of those things that really got under my skin and started to make me feel like a psychopath by the time I was done watching it.
It made
Very
me feel
effective.
like more, I mean, appropriately so, it's a portrait of a serial killer. It's like the perfect title for like what this movie is. It's not like a traditional narrative. It's just sort of a glimpse into the life of this kind of warped mind, but it made me feel more like this could happen to me than something like Halloween would.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Like that first scene where Henry goes in to buy a pack of Cools. I'll never forget that he likes Cools. In his later like challenge, like, oh, what kind of Cools do you want? Because he's just asking and he gets it. And we cut away and then we cut back and we see that he's just like murdered the two clerks at the store.
Yeah.
Like for seemingly no reason. And it makes you feel like, wow, this could really happen to me at any point, any time. This guy does not operate on a logical level. That's chilling. But in a way, he's also an oddly sympathetic character, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, the movie builds sympathy for him without, I think, condoning what he's doing. It's kind of like this guy's kind of a product of a larger problem with society.
And draw your own conclusions,
Right.
basically.
Which is really the most disturbing part, because you're like, oh, this could happen to anybody. Anybody could become this under the right circumstances, and that's the disturbing part about it.
So, I mean, as a bit of perfect connective tissue between Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, and talking about our latest Every Horror Movie on Netflix, I also watched Extremely Wicked, Incredibly Vile, and Shockingly Cruel, or whatever the fuck the Zac Efron Ted Bundy movie
watched
is
that
called
too.
this week, which I guess is a Netflix original.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
How was it?
It was pretty good.
It wasn't what I expected it to be, but I liked it.
What were
Did it
you
live up to the
expecting?
title?
Did it live up to the title? I mean, yeah. Yes. So I was expecting more, and I liked that it didn't do this in a sense, but I was expecting more of a recounting of the horrors that Ted Bundy had done, where it was really more of a from the perspective of his longtime girlfriend and her experience kind of witnessing the trial and the process and everything like that.
It's interesting that it uses her perspective, and the climax that it builds to, kind of the final scene, is pretty powerful. And I like the way that they end up treating sort of the reveal, even though it's not really a reveal, obviously, because
We all
everybody knows
know.
that Ted Bundy killed some fucking people and did some horrible shit to women. But the way they build to the climactic scene is cool, and that scene is well done. Just the way it shifts perspectives in between is really awkward, and the way it kind of makes Ted Bundy into a kind of a rock star-ish figure in a lot of scenes are very strange. Zac Efron is great, though.
Yeah.
Props to him.
It's disturbing in that sense that, you know, it does kind of show him as a rock star, but it's also not untrue for the time, because I mean, he was in a lot of ways kind of the rock star serial killer at the time. He had groupies coming to his trial. That's no exaggeration, unfortunately, and there are still women to this day who kind of worship him, idolize him.
Certainly that's all true, but I think you can still accomplish that and show that in the movie without like setting, you know, a scene of him like escaping from a courthouse to, you know, whatever sort of like period era rock and roll song. Like, look at this cool rebel rock and roll badass running away from the pigs, you know.
So that was interesting for me, because it's like I have this moment where I'm forgetting who I'm watching, and I'm like, yeah, fucking run. And then I'm like, oh God, oh no, I don't want him to escape. I don't want him to leave. And to me, it kind of like helps me understand also how people can turn into these people who idolize serial killers and are obsessed with them in a very unhealthy way.
Sounds like it plays nicely. I don't know if intentionally with, you know, that Ted Bundy documentary that came out on Netflix recently,
Which I really want to see.
This,
It's
yeah, I
good.
do too. I haven't seen. I don't know a ton about him beyond the headlines, but you know, you probably remember there were people on social media like talking about how Ted Bundy is daddy and stuff, and how sexy he was. You know,
Gross.
it's just interesting to know that like that was kind of going on at the time too in its own way, and maybe the movie is sort of playing on that sort of fascination.
And I think that's what it was
Sexualizing a
going
monster.
for. Yeah. To
Was it
help
successful
us.
in doing so, do you think?
I mean, I'm not going to deny that Zac Efron is a charming motherfucker in that role.
Yeah, I mean, God bless. I mean, who would have thought that the fucking star of High School Musical would go on to be like a pretty capable actor in his adult career?
Was it better than Bohemian Rhapsody?
Yes.
It was extremely.
Would you recommend that I check it out?
No.
Okay. But yeah, this week we also watched Creep.
2015's
2014?
2014's
Yep.
Creep.
Is that what it is?
2014, yes.
2014. Mumblecore found footage.
It is. Oh my
Chris,
God.
you've
it's
finally
not
gotten to see your
mumblecore.
first Mumblecore movie.
So someone who's not me, someone who's more hip, because I don't really understand it. Explain the premise of Mumblecore and or what the whole Duplass brothers thing is about.
It's like Curb Your Enthusiasm, where there's a rough outline of a plot, but there's a lot of room for improvisation, and the plot itself is even kind of malleable. Like, from what I understand, this movie didn't end the way that they originally intended it to.
Really?
Oh, I
Yeah.
didn't know that.
I was wondering about that. How much
I don't
of
know
this
what
was
the
improv?
intention was, but it sounds like it was like written verbally, like in conversation, and they just kind of kept playing around with it and playing with their characters and delving deeper into it and filming alternate takes of everything until they like found their movie.
Interesting.
This basic premise is there's a guy, a videographer, who's paid $1,000 to go to some house, some cabin up in the woods, and just make a day in the life documentary sort of a man who says that he's been diagnosed with cancer. He's gonna die. He has his wife is pregnant, gonna have the baby, gonna have the babby, and he wants to leave something behind so the little fella can know his dad. Buddy can know his dad. Allison, we hear that you love this movie.
Okay, so
I don't know if anybody said that. Let's let her speak.
I saw it for the first time about 4 years ago, and it was one of those rare Netflix finds that I was like, this is actually really good. And I had remembered it. It gave me a lot of anxiety watching it, which is typically a good sign in horror for me, as if I'm like, my chest feels like it's closing in on itself. And I had remembered it, but when I was going to watch it again for this podcast, I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about it. I was like, oh, maybe I'm remembering it more fondly than I did, but I watched it and I still really liked it.
Yeah, so I've never felt more ambivalent about a movie on this show before. There were parts of it that I really, really liked, and parts of it I didn't like at all, and I'm really not sure how I feel about it. So I'm especially curious to know like what worked for you in this and why you like this movie in the way you do.
I like to think I have a pretty strong argument for my perspective.
This was my second watch on it too, actually. I watched it at Allison's recommendation a couple years ago. Didn't do anything for me the first time. Did a little more for me this time, I will say. But I guess we'll get into it. I feel like we've already hit like the view it, cue it, or screw it right now. I feel like we need to kind of break it down a little more first, right?
Oh yeah, we're not there yet.
I feel like we're making very broad observations right now.
I trust you, bro. I don't know.
It's kind of a hard movie to talk about, though, in a way.
There's not a lot that happens. It's an hour and 17 minutes, which...
It's an hour and 17 minutes.
From my perspective.
Yeah, you can say, it was mercifully short, but, I'm like, you know what? It was brief. It did what it wanted to do.
I would say it feels shorter than that, actually.
Gets you in and
it
out.
actually goes by pretty quickly, really.
For the record, it is a found footage film.
Yes.
And that's really important to mention.
Yeah, now...
Because it's all told from the point of the dude who's videographing.
He's a freelance videographer. It's like, on some level, I was like, is this a horror movie about the gig economy? No, that wasn't like quite as much of a thing in 2014.
No.
This movie doesn't have that much on its mind.
It doesn't. I wanted it to. I mean, I'm going to show my hand here, but that's why one reason I didn't like it all that much. I feel like there wasn't really much substance. It felt like a movie that was just interested in kind of like twisting the screw and seeing if you can guess like what's going to happen next. Like you know from the outset that Mark Duplass or Jay? Mark. You know from the outset you can't trust this guy. I mean, that's one thing that like threw me off immediately. It was like his performance is so ridiculous. It's like clear that he's full of shit, at least to me, based on his line delivery.
I mean, I feel like I've met some weirdos, and
so have I.
And he kind of felt like a character. He kind of felt like a believable character for a bit.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think he gives a great performance, and I think mostly, even that first scene when he introduced himself to Jason,
the other guy.
No, because his character's name, Mark Duplass's character's name is Joseph. The other guy's Aaron.
Okay.
Aaron.
When Joseph is introducing himself to Aaron, I was like, this feels like one of those weird guys who's like a little too enthusiastic about everything and seems like he's covering for something. It felt like a real dude to me. And I don't know necessarily. I mean, because the marketing all tells you obviously that Mark Duplass is the
I've never seen the trailer. I didn't know anything about this movie before I mean,
even if you just look at the picture on Netflix, like it's him sitting in a bathtub with like the word creep scratched on the wall behind him. Like you can tell he's going to be the weird dude. So I don't know if I would have known that or not. Removed from the marketing around the film.
This is what it was for me, and it was an interesting problem to have with the film. I've seen Mark Duplass in several other films. I could tell that he was improvising in that scene. It felt like he was like, I felt like he was trying to be funny, like he was trying to play an exaggerated character, but like just reading the plot description, or again, seeing the poster, I was like, oh, well, clearly he's telling lies. And what took me out of the experience was like just seeing an actor improvise in front of the camera. Like it didn't feel, I could tell that he was like kind of, that like he had like made up what he was going to say like the day of the take. And it just felt like he was trying to be funny.
I didn't get that
feeling,
get that? But for the record, I'm also an improviser, so I might be a little bit biased.
You might be a better improviser than
I wouldn't agree with that. To me, I liked the improvised aspect because it made it feel very real. Because one of the things that I do like about improv is that it gives you the experience of, it gives you the ability to experience emotion for the first time, and it comes up organically. And a lot of things about that film for me felt very organic because like the emotions felt very like visceral and very real time and not forced, especially like as the viewer, but also from them because they weren't scripted. They didn't have time to settle into that emotion. It was there and they had to figure out what to do with it.
Maybe that was the problem for me. Like that it did, like maybe if like it had been scripted in like what Mark Duplass says in that first scene where we meet him, if that had been rehearsed a couple of times and he had like really like settled into like, yes, this is actually who I am and why I have this guy here, it might have been more believable to me. Otherwise it just felt so off the cuff that it just seemed like I'm watching an actor like who has a vague idea of what he's about, but he's kind of riffing right now. It just didn't seem
hold on just a minute. Are we operating solely on conjecture here that this was unscripted? Do we know this?
Yeah.
Are we just assuming this? I feel like we've assumed this and are just operating under that assumption.
I've researched this. I didn't.
Come on, we still haven't even figured out how Netflix works after fucking 55 episodes.
According to Wikipedia, according to the most trustworthy source on the interwebs,
Wikipedia's gotten so trustworthy. I've been wondering about this lately. Like, do professors now? I feel like professors have to accept Wikipedia now because it's so carefully maintained and peer reviewed.
They should accept
it's as reliable
citations from Wikipedia. I mean, that's what people should use Wikipedia.
Wikipedia's a good gateway if you're doing research, but it should not be. Yeah, it's peer reviewed, but I mean,
it's the marijuana of research.
No, I mean, from what I understand, it was not exactly like entirely improvised, but it was very like it was all very loose.
Okay. All right.
Let's operate under that assumption.
But, I don't know. I think you had some preconceived notions about our Duplass dude and kind of carried some baggage in. I was, for the first time in a long time for Netflix movie, I was very much immersed at the beginning of this movie. I don't know why. Even with the found footage thing, I was like, oh, I'm there. What's going to happen? I have no idea what this movie's about. Here's a guy. He's kind of weird. He's probably going to be a serial killer. I was there. Now, I was disappointed. The first crack in the facade for me was like 15, 20 minutes in the infamous Tubby Time scene, where I felt like I was totally immersed, and then they went into this thing that seemed a bit self-indulgent and too comedic and like a bad SNL skit.
That's how I felt from the beginning, but it's comforting to know that you did eventually have that same sensation watching this.
Yeah, but that's not to say it didn't win me back. I kind of went through these phases where I was like, okay, this scene's really aggravating me. Actually, I'm really into this. There's a lot of good stuff in this movie. And then it just, I wish it had been a little more tonally consistent.
Oh, shut up.
Or, I don't know.
I think it was tonally consistent.
Like, if you have maybe it's just the fact of like, if you have such a loose structure and you're improvising so much and you have like two people in the movie and like this movie feels like they actually shot it in a day. Or a 48-hour film festival sort of situation.
It feels like it's a continuous take.
But the director is the lead actor,
Aaron.
who's not Mark who's not Mark Duplass.
Patrick Bryce is the director / lead Aaron.
So I'm wondering, and maybe I'm wondering if the director should also be the lead, also be the writer, also be like, it seems like that might be too much control over a project that's this improvised.
As someone who has done that in previous projects, I can say absolutely not. You shouldn't do that. I regret doing that, and I feel like this guy shouldn't have done it. I'm not impressed with his performance.
Like, thinking about Curb Your Enthusiasm, that's very improvised, but I don't know if, like, Larry David has ever actually directed an episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm. Like, I feel like you need a referee to be like, okay, the tubby time scene may have been fun to shoot. It breaks the movie.
Dude, you know what? I like the tubby time scene. I like how long it goes on, how weird it is. And we should explain this. So, I mean, Joseph gets in the bathtub. This is the first thing he does after he like explains the premise of what he wants Aaron to do. He goes upstairs, strips down, gets in the bathtub, and pretends he like mimes giving his young son a bath and like talks to his son, but he's talking to the camera because he's theoretically talking to his son when his son is older or whenever watching this tape. And he's like giving his son a bath and pretending to like squeeze water over his like head and like kissing his toes. And it is a weird and deranged and memorable and funny scene. I like it.
I also liked it. I mean, I think it's enough of a clue early on that there's something not quite right with this guy, but you can't exactly place it because his intentions seem good. And you're just like, he's just a weird dude. That's not a deal breaker. That's not a reason to leave and stop this. He's just a weird guy. And that actually, that idea plays into a lot of why this movie worked for me, because I feel like it fed into a lot of my personal anxieties about how to deal with weird people that make you uneasy and give you a feeling of, I should leave this situation right now, but I don't know if that's all in my head or if I'm really potentially in danger. And you kind of convince yourself of both sides. You're like, no, it's fine. It's fine. No, this is a bad situation. No, I'm just being crazy right now. And that movie really played into that part of my thinking. And I could empathize with the videographer, Aaron, because I could hear in his voice those moments where he's just like, I'm weirded out and I should maybe go. But if I go, then I'm being judgmental and not being very nice. So I need to stay and see this through.
Well, I feel like it's really just about the money for him.
Well,
I mean,
this is one thing where I will also give the movie some credit, because it's not necessarily about the money. It's about the fact that he's already given him the money.
Is that right? Okay,
which is an interesting. It's an interesting thing. That's an interesting, just kind of social contract to think about that they play on there. Is up front, Joseph hands him a wad of cash, and Aaron's like, "Oh no, like you don't have to do that." Aaron doesn't even want the money in that moment, but then he's given it, and so it's like, okay, I've taken it already, and so I'm violating some agreement between us if I leave. I do like the way that sets up kind of an interesting tension there, where Aaron feels obligated to stay there because he's already taken the payment for this.
Well, I guess what I want to get to is that, like, I had actually almost no sympathy for our supposed protagonist, because again, it's a weird social contract, but like for him it seems to be about the money, and he's not asking like obvious questions that, or even seeming to wonder about obvious things that would be that would like tip me off immediately. Like, this is more than like the usual weird Craigslist encounter.
I don't know if it was just about the money. The guy comes up, he has a very sympathetic story, you know, and he seems like a good-spirited person.
Except that he's constantly trying to like give him jump scares.
Yeah, he's weird. He's weird, but it's like Allison was just saying. It's like you walk this line. Oh, you know, am I overreacting? Is this guy? You know, I thought when he wasn't being a creep, he was actually very likable.
He was very charming. Joseph, one of the things that makes Mark Duplass's acting work so well for me is that with Joseph, he makes him at moments just really like a really likable guy. For me, it's just like, this is somebody that I could meet who is just like, yeah, I'm just kind of like, you know, one of those free-spirited people. And oh my God, I love everybody that I meet. I've met so many people like that. But then he has these moments where he just turns, and it's just like these little ways where it's just like, there's something not right there. But then he goes right back to being charming and likable. And it's really unsettling for me, and really like that gets under my skin, because I feel like, you know, even though I pretty much, you know, went into this movie even the first time knowing what was going to happen, I'm still like, okay, like I want to like this person, because I think it is on our human nature to want to like and to want to trust people, especially those who we spend so much time with, you know, up close and personal.
I wanted to like him I also wanted him to like me.
Yeah.
Like, through the screen. And
How interesting.
And he takes you to that line where it's like, it's almost too much. It's almost too far. It's almost the point where you'd be like, all right, fuck you, dude.
Yeah.
But
and he pulls it back.
And I thought that was very interesting. And, you know, there was a scene early on when they're walking in the woods, and I was like, this is a great scene, and this might be a great movie, where he's talking about, he's like, when you saw the axe in my yard, did you think for a minute that I was gonna kill you or something? We're gonna kill you with it? And it's like, he's playing it off as a joke, but it's like, I feel like I've known people like that, like kids in high school who would like just say something vaguely fucked up, alluding to like a horrible crime, and you just didn't know, and they seemed to be getting off on being bad enough to bring it up, and then it's like, oh, it's just a joke. And it's like unsettling, creepy stuff. And I wish the movie had more confidence in that kind of element, and had just kind of given me the slow boil of just playing with this guy and then building to some shocking conclusion. But it kind of just didn't do that.
I think it would have worked. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Patrick.
I was just going to say, I'll say this with the caveat that I haven't really seen the movies Mark Duplass is famous for. I haven't seen The Puffy Chair. I haven't seen, I don't know, what else is he famous for?
I don't know. I've seen The Puffy Chair.
I don't know. Right. I haven't seen really many movies that he's directed. I've mostly seen him in supporting roles in sort of bigger movies. And I generally don't like him that much. He doesn't make a great impression on me, but I did like him, and I do like his performance in this movie. That's probably the strongest part of this movie for me, and the thing I can speak most positively about.
Yes.
Can we talk about the diner scene?
Yes.
Okay. So we know very little about our protagonist. What the fuck's his name again? Aaron. And there's a scene where he goes to a diner with Joseph. And Joseph manages to get a very revealing detail out of him at the drop of a hat. Like, after you've just, like, it should be clear at this point that Aaron's, like, a little bit skeptical of this guy, having spent enough time with him. Like, not thinking he's, like, a fucking psychopath or something, but, like, this guy, he's weird. He's, like, kind of charming, but he also kind of freaks me out. You don't think so?
I believed it.
You're shaking your head?
I believed it.
You believe that he would just immediately at the drop of a hat reveal the most embarrassing detail of his entire life to this person?
No, it was his first embarrassing memory, and to me, it didn't strike me as that embarrassing. To me, that's the token shit I hand out to people. I'm like, oh yeah, haha, I used to wet myself when I was a kid. That's not the big. That's not the top. I don't know what the expression is. I'm top banana.
I was surprised.
That's not an expression.
I was surprised that Joseph didn't hit back and demand something more personal.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I don't know, just the way it was delivered to me, and the fact that like there was that he was just so readily willing to offer that to somebody that like I would not trust. Like I would have just like made something stupid up just to get through the conversation at that point.
Maybe he did.
I wanted to be his friend.
Well, we can talk about the end of the movie and wasn't making it up.
I think the interesting thing about this movie and the reason why it works for some people as found footage, but I think undeniably the found footage puts you in the role of Aaron as the viewer. And so we read a lot of ourselves into this movie and how we would react. And for someone like Chris and I, we would be those people who would want to give someone like Joseph a chance and want to connect with him, whereas Patrick and Steven would be more skeptical and be more held back.
Yeah, I mean, you know, Allison, when you and I were talking about it the other day, I was saying, I guess in a way I still don't think, Patrick Bryce's performance is very good, and I think you could have had a better actor in that role, and I think this would have worked better if it wasn't fucking found footage, and you could still have him videoing, but have an actual camera and an actual shot set up, and it would be a more effective movie. No, but I'm talking about what would make a more effective movie, and what would also allow you to see more of Patrick Bryce or whatever actor plays that role, their performance. But it does. When I'm making my most charitable interpretation of that artistic choice, I think it forces you into this first-person shooter kind of thing where you are the person holding the camera, and so you're forced to empathize with that situation a little more. It didn't work that well for me, and I don't know. I'm the sort of person who will give people a chance, I think. But, you know, when it gets to the point of them inviting you up for fucking whiskey and just there's been a weird vibe all day,
Oh, you would accept the whiskey.
No,
I would not. I absolutely would not.
Have you ever turned down whiskey?
I wouldn't. That part gave me the absolute. I was so stressed out. I was like, I knew what was going. But I'm like, get out of there.
But I mean, if I'm in a diner with that,
I was just like, that actually is the scene where the movie completely lost me and I stopped caring.
if I'm in a diner with that person though, and we've been, kind of talking and maybe learning a little bit about each other all day, I'll play. I'll share an
we learned
embarrassing.
that he took
I'll share an
photos of me
embarrassing moment
while I was trying to get into his house. Sure, I'll hang out with him later.
I think I probably still would, actually, even in that moment. I'd still be like,
really?
Wow, you came clean about this. This is kind of a weird thing. And I still, again, I don't think the bedwetting thing is a top shelf, embarrassing memory. I would go for something.
But how do we know? Because we have nothing to contextualize it with. We don't
from the performance and from the fact that it's a childhood thing.
Well,
I would not share something embarrassing. I would share. But I think the way he performs it, it's not something that's super effective.
And he has them for something what he's most ashamed of. No one's fucking most ashamed of something that happened on the playground when they were 6. It's
or wasn't it like the first moment you experienced shame?
I think that's what it was.
And that was particular what Aaron was. He's like, that was the first moment I experienced shame.
I don't think that was the question. That is how he answered it.
But that's how he answered it.
Right.
Yeah.
I think the question is, have you ever done something you were really ashamed of?
Yes.
I don't think it's top shelf. Like, what's the thing you've most been ashamed of?
Yeah.
I don't know enough about him to know that he's not a guy who has never done anything else shiftless. Like, that's all I know about him, is that he used to have to wear like a monitor thing that beeped when he wet himself. Like, I don't know anything else about this person. I don't know if does he have a girlfriend? Like, how far away is he? How far did he drive to see this guy?
Why do you really want to know that much about him?
Why I want to know is because I want to know why I should care that he's in this precarious situation.
Yes.
And why he's making these very suspect choices.
And honestly, I would like to know even more about Joseph by the time things are over. In the end, we never really know that much about Joseph.
One thing about Joseph, and it's the thing he does in the last scene. And I will say no more for now. But like anything else, I have no clue like what the truth is about this person.
But this is another interesting part of this movie, is it really shows you. So for context, I am an audience member who is absolutely, for the most part, engaged with what I'm watching, whether I'm watching something live or on the screen. I am in it. I feel everything that's happening if it's engaging enough. And to me, I experienced extreme empathy while watching this. And so I didn't necessarily need to know the details of Aaron, but he was a real enough person. He was on that screen. He was behind that camera. He was on that screen. He was there. He was present. He mattered. And in this capacity of this found footage and in the way found footage works, it's like, it would be cheesy in the context of a found footage movie for us to know too much about him, because the footage that he was taking wasn't supposed to be about him.
That's true. That's absolutely
so in that way it stayed consistent, and even how the camera would move and his body language, sometimes you could feel that was enough to make him feel real enough for me to care about him, because I am a highly empathetic viewer in general.
I think
that makes sense. I admire that, actually.
Let me add a gamer's perspective to this.
Okay.
Because I had some hang-ups with the whole found footage format, but I think really our man Aaron is what you would call, just an audience or a player surrogate character, where he's not really important. What's important is that it's us kind of seeing these things through his
It's a
lens.
first-person shooter.
He's just kind of a
first-person
siphon.
shooter.
Yeah.
There are many video games where there's a silent protagonist that you're just supposed to project your own personality onto.
Or a first-person shootee, I guess, in this case.
Yeah. and then the first-person found footage perspective is particularly effective in some of the spooky scenes where you don't have the benefit of having peripheral vision of this scenario, and someone could pop up in your face at any moment. But my big problem with the found footage is that it was not motivated in the context of the story, really. Like, we can all there's a lot of found footage movies where you say, well, why don't you put down the fucking camera, when the zombies are coming out of the walls, right? But we can forgive that. But I really didn't understand the motivation for a lot of the stuff that he was shooting, especially later on in the movie.
Yeah, other than the stuff where Joseph is explicitly paying him to shoot their day,
Right.
it's like, why are you still like shooting yourself, like
So
doing
we have a movie.
unwrapping this thing and turning the camera back on your face? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So we have a movie, which brings me back
Or letting the
to
camera run while you're drugging somebody, which he does.
yeah, which brings me back to it would work a lot better if it was a traditionally shot movie. You can still have the same element where he's filming the day, but you don't have to have it all in found footage. So why make it a found footage movie? Budget reasons.
As far as I can tell, the only reason this movie is found footage is because it's a no-budget movie, and when you do found footage, you can make a no-budget movie look indistinguishable from a actual major release movie, as long as it's found footage. I would prefer to just see the shitty, traditionally shot movie. I mean, use the same budget, but put the camera on a fucking tripod, make it like, a movie like some high schoolers would make, some college kids would make. It'd be fine.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Allison is shaking her head and looking
Something
disgusted.
about it just felt too much to me. Like, these are two actors, like friends who know each other, who are just kind of feeling this out.
Yeah.
It never really felt like there were any stakes for me. Though my curiosity did propel me through the film, because I was like, what is Joseph's deal?
What's his deal?
I wanted to know. I'm like, clearly they came up with something great if they're going to lead me through this journey and make a whole movie about this. Like, there's got to be some shocking truth in here somewhere.
I was ready for some Baskin level shit.
Baskin level.
You wanted Mehmet to come out.
I wanted them to go down
Doug
into
Bradley,
the basement, and I wanted this guy to be up to some fucked up stuff in the basement of his little cabin in the woods.
I was actually...
we need to have a recurring segment where you write the movie that we want to see, because right now you're writing the creep that I want to see.
my friend Mike and I were talking about having a podcast called A Better Movie, where we watch a bad movie and we just do a pitch meeting and try and rewrite it.
Yeah.
Anyway, no, I was worried it was gonna go there. I was like, if it's another movie where he mutilates bodies or whatever, unless it goes to the supernatural, I'm not interested, because I've seen that before.
Actually, I guess I don't want to see that.
I wanted it to be, oh god, if I even tell you what movie I thought it was trying to be, it would be too much before the spoiler room.
Can we talk about Peach Fuzz? We haven't talked about Peach Fuzz yet.
Peach
That's
Fuzz.
definitely pre-spoiler room.
Sure, let's talk about Peach
Dear
Fuzz.
darling Peach Fuzz.
There's a horrifying wolf mask in the closet.
Was it custom made for the movie? Does anybody know?
I don't think they had that.
I don't
much
think they had the budget for that.
That would be some budget.
That was
that
just a
mask-
Halloween
that-
store wolf mask.
It's okay. Granted, Blumhouse movies are fairly low budget. I don't think it costs very much money to have Tom Savini make you a mask.
Someone had that mask laying around. That mask cost at least $30.
That's not.
That
not
did
a
not
nice
look
mask.
like I've never seen.
Did you just say that cost at least $30?
Talking about Peach Fuzz, I'm gonna look this up.
Was Peach Fuzz custom made?
Okay, Google. In the movie Creep, did they pay money for the prop of the Peach Fuzz mask?
So Peach Fuzz is a mask that Joseph has, that he claims that his father made, and he would put it on and he would sing a weird song.
Which you can tell Jay Duplass probably made up a different song every time he did a take of this scene.
Absolutely. That was completely
Mark
improvised.
Duplass.
Yeah, not Jay.
Oh yeah, not Jay Duplass.
But it's unnerving and it's unsettling, and you're like, that shit's gonna play in later.
Yeah, because later in the movie in the diner scene, right? He reveals.
No, it's when they're at home drinking whiskey.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so I guess we should set that up briefly. So after their day together, Mark Duplass, not Jay, Joseph invites Aaron upstairs to his place to have a little nightcap before they wrap up the night.
Yeah, and for the record, Aaron really tries to leave. You can tell that he is pretty weirded out by his experience. But Joseph, it's just like, come on, just have some whiskey, and really tries to basically disarm him pretty much without so much as saying, make Aaron feel a little crazy for the fact that he is uncomfortable and wants to leave right then.
Yeah.
And there's some fascinating drama where Aaron can't find his car keys. Best scene with missing car keys I've seen in a horror movie to date.
I thought that was going to be a typical Chris Slat comparison where it was going to be Since, some other movie that is a funny
But are there
comparison.
other missing car keys scenes in movies that you can recall right now?
From Blumhouse, yes.
Even just if we narrow it down to Blumhouse. All right.
Oh, isn't there a missing car? Yeah, missing car keys in Get Out.
Yeah,
isn't there?
that's what I was saying.
Yeah, that's a better missing car.
Picking
key
up what
scene.
I
Come
put
on.
down.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I said.
You can't compete.
Yeah,
Jeez.
that's what I said. Anyway,
Anyways, he tells a story about how, man, it's a weird fucking story. I still don't even fully understand this story. The history on his internet browser was full. That's how this story starts.
Some bullshit. His internet wasn't working. He went into the history, found out his wife was into bestiality. He put on the werewolf mask. He came in and raped her in the middle of the night, and she kind of liked it. And he was like, "Oh, what do I do?"
And then they
with
never
this?
spoke of
And
it
they never
again.
spoke of it again.
Yeah.
And
Which,
so
you
it
know,
makes
that
you
wasn't so hard to
feel
explain.
Beautiful
weird.
day in America.
And then Aaron's like, I gotta go.
Yeah.
And his car keys aren't there. So then he drugs.
Yeah,
Joseph.
it all starts.
I
Well,
still can't
he-
keep track of the names.
So when Aaron realizes that he's not going to get his keys back anytime soon, he's like, yeah, you know what, let's have some more whiskey. So turns out Aaron puts Benadryl into Joseph's whiskey.
Which I guess is actually fine in the end, but in the moment when he's doing it, I'm like, what does he just have in the pocket of his coat that he can like knock a person out by dropping it into their
Benadryl
drink?
really gonna knock somebody out
Oh
like
my
that,
God. I used to take Benadryl when I was in middle school because I have really bad allergies and I can't take it anymore because I would be out for 3 hours every time I took it.
Give that to a baby. Take it.
I've
on the
never had
plane.
that experience with
I
Benadryl.
have,
a
I have
hardy
used it to
constitution.
sleep back in the day a little bit. Does it exist in liquid form though?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I
Yeah.
thought it was just pills.
There's liquid gels.
So this is the part of the movie where I was like, all right, I'm ready. I want Aaron to be the creep, which would have been great.
Oh, I didn't get any whiff of that at all.
I was like, you know what? Maybe we are watching the video footage of a madman right now, and maybe this
Better
guy
movie.
who,
Would've loved that.
who
I
think I would've liked
presents
that twist.
who's a little bit off is actually totally fine. He's just a little off, and now we're gonna
But
watch
Aaron's really off.
Aaron do some fucked up things. Maybe because he's paranoid that this guy is. Maybe you have a little good night mommy situation where he's so paranoid that this guy's a creep that he becomes the creep. Would have been fascinating.
Not what we
but
get.
that's not what happened.
Not what we get at all.
No.
And I don't know how much else we can talk about what we get before we go down those creaky old stairs to the spoiler room.
Hey, why don't we go have a whiskey in the spoiler room?
That would be great.
Double whiskey.
I'll
I
pour
didn't even
my
have to
own,
talk Steven
thanks.
into it.
Double whiskey, Coke, no ice.
Shia LaBeouf's already down there with a double whiskey. What could go wrong?
Wait, why Shia LaBeouf?
Actual serial
Just
killer
Google
Shia LaBeouf.
LaBeouf double whiskey and watch the video. That's all I can say.
Can you explain it to us?
No.
Do you guys know what he's talking about?
No, I have no idea.
No,
I'll
I have
explain
no
it to you
idea.
later. All right. So before we do that, you know what time it is.
Oh, right.
Allison, our special guest, Creep the movie. Would you view it, cue it, or screw it?
Oh, gee, I wonder what I'm going to say. I give it a view it. This movie really worked for me. It played into so many of my anxieties and fears, and I deeply empathized with what was going on. I mean, I was watching it, and even though the second time around, I already knew everything that was going to happen, my chest still felt like it was caving in on itself. It was just like really stressful for me, and I like that, so I give it a view it.
Actually, before we keep going on with ratings, that reminds me, I think this movie does. I don't want to be too woke here, but you really responded to this movie. We also have a fan who's a woman who messaged us and said that she's a huge fan of this movie, and I think this movie kind of plays on some anxieties that might be more specific to women than they are.
I
to
would
men.
agree
I
with
thought
that.
about that a lot watching this. Like,
I would agree with that.
So, I mean, I'm like me. I'm like macho man that I am. I'm thinking. Mark Duplass doesn't look like shit. Like, this guy's got fucking 70 pounds on Mark Duplass. Just beat the shit out of him.
What?
Problem
Mark
solved.
looked like he was in way better shape than the other dude.
The other
He's
guy
like in
was
his
big,
fucking
though.
like he was.
he's flabby as fuck. What are
He's
you
not
talking
that
about?
flabby. He's
Well, what I'm trying
Wait,
to say
who?
is he didn't seem physically intimidating or anything like that. But like, yeah, I think like you're saying, this has come up in like the whole Me Too conversation and everything like that too. This whole like self-doubting, like, oh, is this guy really a creep or is he a good guy? Am I overreacting? All this kind of stuff that plays out in the movie. That's something that I personally don't have as much experience with as a lot of women do. And then especially, when a movie kind of goes into a stalker route, that's something that's more.
Yeah. I agree. As somebody who, when I was pretty young, I had a stalker, and I didn't know if it was just I was overreacting or if they were really creepy.
Oh, that's so scary.
Like, and it never turned into anything serious, but I did have a stalker, so it does play into some of my fears and that self-doubt and that should I be nice? But you know what? Fuck politeness. Yeah. Don't be polite. Be safe. Get the fuck out of situations that make you feel weird, which is, as an adult, is more of the mindset that I have. But it's still, it's easy to be in those situations and to have people convince you that you're crazy for feeling uneasy. So,
Patrick, would you cue it, view it, or screw it?
Oh, I wasn't ready. This is not. Go in order. Pick Steven.
Steven.
Screw it. I really didn't care for this movie. And I'm glad this came up because this is something I wrote down in my notes and thought about a lot. Like, I think this would have been, even with like the quote unquote script as is, if it had been like a woman in the role of the videographer, I think it would have worked better for me. I didn't really feel all that much tension between these two characters. I was just like, okay, like, If I'm sensing this is weird, I don't know why our protagonist doesn't. Like, why doesn't he just get the fuck out? He's already got his money. He can go. Maybe he'll feel a little bit guilty about short shrifting this guy. But I don't know. It didn't work for me. I'm not a fan of found footage movies in general. Not necessarily as a rule, but I can think of a few that have worked for me. But this felt very much. I wrote the word bro a lot in my notes. This felt like two fucking like man children bros hanging out making a movie on the weekend.
Yeah.
And that makes me uncomfortable. It seems lazy. Not a terrible premise, I guess, but I don't think there's enough meat on these bones for it to be worthwhile as it is. So screw it.
Personally, I could make an argument. Like I said, I'm very ambivalent. I feel like I could make an argument for a view it, an argument for a cue it, or an argument for a screw it. I thought there was a lot of stuff in this movie that worked, a lot of stuff that was almost genius. Let me put it this way. There was a lot of genius in this movie that I wish had been sustained for longer. There were flashes of things that were really interesting to me, and then it would go in another direction before I was ready for it too. At the end of the day, though, I'm going to give it a screw it, just kind of following Steve's rule, which is like, if I could go back in time and tell myself whether or not I should watch this movie, I'd probably say, don't even put it in your queue because life is short. So I'll say screw it, but I'm
honestly surprised.
Very soft screw it. I mean, I could have given it a view it also.
So ultimately your rating is arbitrary. I'll ask you what you think tomorrow.
Yeah. Patrick, moment of truth.
Yeah. I mean, I've had a hard time with this since I watched it 2 or 3 years ago because Allison recommended it to me, and I love Allison. Generally, I love the things that Allison recommends to me.
That's a terrible way to go about life.
Which part?
Loving you?
Leave that up to interpretation.
But yeah, it felt so dull to me. It just went right over my head the first time I went, and not over my head, but just like in one ear out the other the first time I watched it. And it stuck only slightly more the second time, and mostly just I found it funny the second time, which I don't think is unintentional. I think there's a lot of stuff in here that's meant to be funny.
They're trying to be funny through a lot of this movie, for sure.
Yeah. And I mean, it's not that it's a total like wasteland. It's not that there's nothing there. There are definitely some things that work. Mark Duplass's performance is effective. And I think there are overall elements of the premise that are certainly potent. But I think mostly where it succeeds, it almost succeeds by accident and not by intention. And I don't know. I think there are better ways to do this movie. And the good parts of it don't outweigh the parts that are just meh for me. So I don't know. I got to go screw it. It's just not one of those things that I can recommend.
Wow. Wow.
I'm surprised everyone was so surprised by that.
Wow. Yeah. There is some shit you guys watched that you've given Qits. I am shocked and shook.
But it's because, sometimes I can watch a movie that I think is bad, but it's still interesting, and I don't find this movie interesting.
It's like
not completely uninteresting, but not very interesting.
For me, it's like you can watch a shitty movie like Avalanche Sharks or whatever and meet it on its level. And this is a movie that just, I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Avalanche Sharks is, make no mistake, a bad movie.
Yeah.
And these
you don't say.
And these ratings are not, and this is why I like our scale. This is why I like the scale that Steven concocted in a beer garden 2 summers ago, just off the top of his head. You just shit out this rating scale. And it's
my finest moment.
But it's a great rating scale, really, because it doesn't require you to say if the movie is good or bad. It's just should you absolutely watch it? Should you think about watching it? Or should you just not watch it?
Yeah.
You know? And there are plenty of movies I've watched for this thing where it's yeah, that's bad, but fuck, it was entertaining. Absolutely. If you're bored some night, throw on Avalanche Sharks. It's something. You will remember watching it, you know? And this, in one ear out the other.
Interesting.
Other than the final moment, which has stuck with me, which we'll talk about in the spoiler room, where we're about to go.
It's just quite frustrating that I almost love this movie, and so
you're almost angry because it's there was so much potential there for you that you're you didn't live up to what I wanted you to be. So screw you.
Yeah, it's like your kid cheated on the SAT.
Whereas if it had started off kind of disappointing and it was just it sustained that, you'd have been maybe it's a Qit.
Yeah, I just wish I could have given these guys a pep talk and been hey guys, have confidence in this direction that you're flirting with.
I won't deny that it definitely has potential to be a better movie and better scripted and better thought out. And I wouldn't hate seeing this movie revisited and redone and see what they could do with it being, not found footage. It's not without its faults. I'll be completely honest about that. But, for me, a lot of how I feel about it is just from how the visceral reactions that it gave me. And for me, horror is about the visceral reactions that it gives me.
I mean, it was fascinating watching it with you when Joseph was inviting him upstairs for the whiskey. And actually, what I would argue is maybe one of the best shots of the movie. That's a visually striking shot when Aaron is looking up at Jason from the bottom of the steps. Joseph is totally in silhouette. It's an effective shot. And Allison was just no, and I was wow. I sort of wished I was having the same experience you were having with it in that moment.
That just now, remembering that moment, my chest is
which is also interesting because that's not really the moment where shit goes down.
No.
It takes a while after that.
But that's also that's a moment where you recognize that Aaron has a choice. He's done his job. He can get the fuck out of town. I'm just you can go now and everything will be fine, maybe.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well,
which is the same warning I would issue to the rest of us right now as we head down to the spoiler room.
Yeah, come on down these stairs, guys. I got some whiskey for you.
We can go right now. It'll be okay.
We're going there. All right, so that's our take on Creep. Go check it out if you want to decide for yourself, or follow us down in the spoiler room. Have some whiskey with us, and we're going to spoil everything. Stick around. Welcome back. We're down here in the spoiler room talking about Creep. Guess what, guys? Turns out Mark Duplass doesn't actually have a wife, doesn't actually have a little cancer baby.
Jesus. What?
He doesn't have a baby that he's trying to leave a message for. It's all bullshit.
A canker baby.
He's just a psycho. His motivations are never really explained.
No, which is...
He goes on and to stalk our friend Aaron, who escapes. He escapes the house after a little spooky situations.
The woman he's said was his wife is actually his sister.
Yeah.
A woman calls identifying herself by the name that he said his wife's name was, and it turns out
yeah.
his
And-
sister.
Right, and she says like he's not
Yeah.
all right. You need to get out of
Yeah,
there.
She's like, you need to leave
No
right now.
shit.
Just leave, walk away, give me the address of where you are, and just walk away. Which
wait, okay,
you
so hold
fucking
on.
do it when you get that call.
I have a question about this because I actually wanted to watch this again, even though I didn't like it, to give it another chance, and just didn't have time. I was moving this week. So I read the Wikipedia summary, and it says that he pulled his own phone out of Mark Duplass's
I think
pocket.
they got that wrong.
They,
on the
no, they got that
Wikipedia,
wrong. They
yeah.
confused me. I was like, wait, did I miss something? How the fuck did
Wikipedia's
she have the
not
number of his phone?
reliable source. Fucking
yeah.
Joseph edited Wikipedia.
Also, a memorably weird scene, which I did not remember from the first time I saw it, is Mark Duplass just like laying asleep
Oh,
after
God.
Joseph has drugged him. Or no, god damn it. After Aaron has
Aaron.
drugged Joseph, and Joseph is like laying there, he's like peach fuzz. And he's like sticking his hand down his pants and like jerking off while he's half asleep, like talking about peach fuzz.
Like, not something
Very
this
weird.
movie needed, really, at that moment.
It was shocking.
I liked it. It's memorable. I'm glad it's there.
It's memorable. I don't know. I mean, this is a
jerking
pretty...
off to a wolf mouse.
I liked it. It was pretty good.
Well, I mean, we're meant to assume that he's like jerking off thinking about raping his wife in that moment, I think.
Right.
His
But that's not
non-existent
something
wife.
that happened. Like that's ostensibly he completely made all that
We
shit
don't
up.
know that at this point in the movie, though.
But we know he doesn't have
Yeah.
a wife.
Not
I mean,
necessarily.
maybe he does.
We
but
don't
her
know
name
that.
certainly isn't Angela.
Listen, he
Yeah.
gets
This is
off by
pre-phone
murdering
call.
people with a wolf mask, so he has like a psychosexual thing with that.
Who knows?
We're trying to
we never
fucking
find out.
profile him like fucking
Well,
millennium.
initially, doesn't
Jim
he say
Smith.
that the
I am
picture-
Mindhunter.
Doesn't he initially say that the mask has something to do with his dad?
Yeah.
In the
It's like
first
the
scene, we didn't
Joker's
talk about that.
scars. He makes
the-
up a new story every time he puts the mask on.
Exactly, and we hope.
You want
or
to know
expect-
how I got this mask?
We expect that we're getting closer to the
Ew.
truth, and the fact is, we don't get anywhere near
Some
it.
ASMR
The
for you.
movie
I don't
ends
like
and
it.
we know less about all these characters than we did going in.
Yeah, like he's a creep.
He's a creep.
He's
Lives
a
up to the
weirdo.
title.
Yeah.
What the hell is he doing in here?
Oh wow.
He doesn't
He don't belong here.
Was that movie better or worse than Bohemian Rhapsody?
We already talked about this, didn't we?
It's a meme, Patrick.
Is it?
Get on it. Now it is. It's
For Chris.
come up twice.
Yeah,
I would say
and not just tonight.
Creep was also better than Bohemian Rhapsody.
Ooh.
Hey,
So if you gave this a screw it,
Get out of here.
Ayo.
No.
are we gonna go full Beetlejuice right now?
God, you need to see Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yeah.
You,
No, I
you
don't. I think that's kind of.
He
a-
does to
don't.
participate in the memes.
Yeah.
I don't
but
think I
the
need
memes
to.
aren't
I've
worth
seen
it.
the trailer. and
Okay,
I've heard
let me
about
just tell you a single scene. I'm sorry to the rest of you. This will take like 10 seconds, though. I just want to see Steven's reaction.
Yeah.
Freddie Mercury goes to the hospital. It's like, I think it's when he's first diagnosed with AIDS, or
He
he's
gets
getting
diagnosed.
AIDS treatment. I forget.
No,
But
he gets diagnosed, I think, on
is he?
that visit.
Yeah. And so he's walking out of the hospital, and of course he's destitute. He's just been diagnosed, and there's like this little
Destitute.
yeah.
Like he's lost all of his money. He's a man of the
Well,
street.
no, but this is his.
You know what?
lowest.
Just
a
listen to
low
the fucking story and shut up.
Despondent.
So he's despondent. Thank you. So he's walking out of the hospital. Light is flooding down this corridor, and there's this little like tiny AIDS patient who I think is bald and just like skinny and destitute. The AIDS patient is destitute.
Okay.
Freddie is despondent. The AIDS patient is destitute. And he walks past this kid in the corridor, and just as he walks past, the kid's like, "Ayo," and Freddie turns back. He's like, "Ayo." And that's like the whole scene.
Oh my god.
That's Bohemian Rhapsody in a nutshell for you, my man.
And there's
Wow.
like 600 cuts in that 2 minutes.
Yes. Yes.
Footage.
It's like, A, cut, O. All right, anyways. Why were we talking about that?
actually, this because Bryan Singer is also a creep. That's why we're talking about it.
And got fired from the movie.
Oh, God.
Anyway,
Frankly, I don't even know if the rest of this movie is that interesting. I don't even know what I want to spoil.
So, we should explain. Go ahead.
So what happens is, as we started to explain, is that Aaron gets out of the situation, but he is being stalked by Joseph. Joseph is sending videos to Aaron. The first video he sends is Joseph is like hauling a bunch of what seems like potentially very heavy trash bags and starting to dig. So that's threatening.
Seems like
Right,
Right.
and it's cut so that it happens right after, I forget what exactly. Oh, I think Joseph pops out. He pops at Aaron in the wolf mask, and so you almost think the cut is showing you what happens after the fact, that he's dragging Joseph up the hill. But then Joseph happens to be filming a TV screen and pans over to himself, and he was like...
Or Aaron is.
Aaron.
He's like,
Aaron is filming a TV screen, and he pans over to himself, and he's like, yeah, Joseph sent me this
That was
a couple
a
days
close
ago.
one.
That was weird.
So there's like a few nights, basically, of Aaron dealing with weird
You know what that
stuff.
was like? It was like this episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer in like 1997 or 1998 or something like that, where Cordelia got like impaled severely and was like bleeding out in everyone's arms. Cut to a cemetery.
Quick question. Can you get impaled non-severely?
Cut to...
lightly impaled.
cut to an establishing shot of a cemetery and a funeral going on. And then the camera pans, and in the foreground we have our heroes, and they're saying, well, I'm glad Cordelia's going to be okay.
Oh, it's a fake out.
That was exactly what they did to us in Creep the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Creep the movie.
so all that happens,
Based on a true story.
and basically it's like escalating stuff, and Joseph ends up sending him stuff where he's just like, I'm so sorry. You know, he sends him a locket with their initials on it that says J and A forever.
Well, and there's a shot earlier where they go to that waterfall thing. We didn't even talk about that, where he like draws a heart with their initials on it.
Yeah, so like, and it seems like Joseph is really trying to be back in good terms with Aaron and non-threatening, and so he continues to like basically send him the stuff, and Aaron's documenting this, and finally, like one night, Aaron wakes up, throws on the camera, and because he's hearing noises, basically Joseph has been trying to get into the house or near the house.
And we see
he's
Joseph
straight
actually
up
there,
stalking him. Yeah.
but Aaron doesn't see it, which is kind of an interesting use of the found footage format.
That's a creepy scene, and it's almost
Creep.
the difficult thing about that scene is I feel like it's been done better elsewhere, and I can't place where I've seen that done better, where there's a camera trained on someone who's sleeping or whatever, and someone else grabs the camera and starts doing creepy shit with it. I like that sort of trope.
Oh yeah.
But I almost thought, I was like, play this out some more. Like, it almost doesn't even last long enough.
And apparently Aaron never watches back any of his footage.
Right.
You know,
yeah, I mean, because we should explain, like, Joseph comes into his room and is filming Aaron while he's sleeping, and cuts off a lock of his hair while filming him. Weird shit, but it never really adds up to anything.
Yeah.
Hey, it's unsettling.
Okay, here's I mentioned something earlier about the bedwetting thing or whatever. According to Wikipedia, there is evidence that he has pissed the bed in that scene. And I want to know, did anybody notice this?
I
'Cause
did.
clearly
All right,
not.
let's say
I'm like,
that's
that
true.
would have been...
We have seen it 5 times between the three of us, and none of us noticed.
Okay, yeah, what would that have added to the movie?
It would have helped embolden my argument that it's absurd that he would reveal something so personal in that scene of the diner, and that's it.
So
that's it. That's why I'm hung up
it
on
wouldn't have helped the movie.
No.
I don't know. This whole section of the movie, I call this whole section of the movie sleep, because that's how I felt.
So all of that happens. Finally, it culminates. He gets, another video that's entitled "My Last Video," some shit like that.
He says, "Hey man, I'm sorry. Come on out to the lake and we'll talk about
I know
it."
I've been weird.
Yeah, it's a little more heartfelt. He's like, there's some stuff that's wrong with me. I've always struggled. I've always been a loner, but I really like you, and I really feel like you're my friend. And it really
says he's
plays.
lonely.
And he
He's
says
a
he's
lonely
lonely.
guy.
And it really plays into what seems like Aaron's fatal flaw, and also, a really important part of his nature, which is he is somebody who wants to trust people. And so,
or at least this one creepy guy.
Yeah,
See,
do you want to trust people in general? I don't know.
Yes,
I only know about him and this guy.
Yeah, here's my question, and I feel like this is again where the movie may actually be structured for you to project your own personality onto him. To me, watching that, I don't feel like I got a sense of how he feels about anything. I didn't feel like I got a sense of him being inclined to trust people or being inclined to care. I didn't feel like I knew anything about this guy
He's a
other than this
cipher, but
one
it worked for Allison.
memory about. No, I know it did,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I think
which
that's
is really
and I think
interesting.
that's again because of probably the structure of the movie, which is intended for you to project yourself onto the character. I don't think there's that much there in that character.
There's not so much spoken, but I think it's all in how he speaks and how he moves and how he interacts with Joseph. You can read a lot about a person's character through stuff like that.
But I feel like I picked up much more about Joseph, which to me speaks to Mark Duplass's performance and the lack of a performance, not just in the sense that I don't think Patrick Brice gave a very good performance, but also just that he's not a presence. You know, he's not a presence. There just literally isn't a performance there much of the time. And I think it speaks to the quality of Duplass's performance and just kind of the non-existence a lot of the time of Brice's performance, and the degree to which the movie asks you to fill in the blanks for Aaron and that character.
And again, all the stuff where he's being stalked and he's getting presents in the mail, it seems so unmotivated of why he's filming himself and who he thinks he's talking to.
Well, I think at that point he feels like he's in danger, so he's wanting to document it should he need to do something with it.
How about a found footage movie where the guy's a YouTuber?
Well,
That's got to be coming, right?
Okay, we opened with him doing this sort of like travelogue video diary thing. I hate that trope, but if we want to learn more about him, then why didn't he turn the camera back more on himself in his private moments and be like, oh my God, like I can't believe what I did, like kind of break down what he was thinking as he was going through these weird scenarios with this guy.
Sup, guys,
to give us a little bit more insight into it.
Smash like, smash that subscribe. We're going
Give me some tokens.
So he dies.
So Mark Duplass's character implores him to meet him at this lake, and he's like, all right, I've got my camera on,
and this is one moment where that makes sense. I really was like, okay, yeah, absolutely, film this.
Guys,
like, leave the camera running in your car and see what happens.
Yeah, film this, but also leave yourself completely exposed.
He's got 911 ready to dial.
He's in a public area. It's a wide open area, middle of a sunny day.
He looks around. He sees trees.
This was a justifiable decision.
He sees families. He sees kids playing on the playground. He sees a wolf wearing a coat, just hiding in a bush. Normal stuff.
I mean, he doesn't see the wolf
that we know of. Yeah.
I mean, I maybe wouldn't have sat down on a bench if I was him. I would have been like kind of looking around, like, all right, where's this fucker?
Like, right next to the water, where like the only place he can approach you from.
He's not gonna come out of the fucking water.
Regardless, this is the most impactful shot of the movie to me. Both times I watched it, it's a wide shot. It's weirdly framed so that he's in kind of the lower right-hand corner of the frame. He's sitting on a park bench facing the water. Joseph walks up behind him in like a trench coat, very quietly. Small figures in the frame. Joseph like pulls the peach fuzz mask out of his coat, puts it on. Then he pulls the fucking axe out of his coat and just slowly, it's just agonizing. It's like, oh my God,
stressful.
like, get it over
Did not
with.
turn the dial.
Really?
No, didn't turn the dial.
So stressful.
It was only agonizing that, like, all right, well, just get this over with. So the movie can
Here's the thing. There was no doubt in my mind once the wolf shows up.
Both times I watched it.
I was like, oh, he's just going to kill him. And there was no suspense.
It was agonizing.
I thought it was a foregone conclusion.
Totally
so
with you, Chris.
I didn't really care.
Especially because it is so found footagey. And I mean, he fucking whacks on his head. I mean, I don't know how they staged this.
I was thinking, I'm like, how did they do that
they didn't have
effect?
a budget to stage it. They actually had to kill him.
And they resurrected him to direct the second one.
Because they knew they couldn't afford his salary as an actor from the get-go.
Yeah.
It is brutal. And actually,
they gave him the cash up front and collected it out of his coat after they killed him.
I remembered the movie ending with that,
You know
actually,
how I
and I
would've
was
done
wrong about that. It goes back to fucking Mark Duplass, like, giving a little like monologue to the camera and then some heavy metal music, bro, for the credits.
Yeah.
It's not just a monologue. So it's the after he murders Aaron, just chops him right in the head.
Boom.
Is that the sound it makes?
Boom, yeah.
It goes to a shot. Joseph is filming himself, and he's basically talking to Aaron, who is, of course, now dead.
He gives his final thought like Jerry Springer.
Yeah, but he says he's just like, why you're my favorite is because you trusted me. You didn't look around. You came to the lake because you trusted me. And that's why I love you the most. And that fucking gave me chills. That's some creepy ass shit, because I'm telling you, that is some psychopath serial killer shit right there. Is that pathological need that some have to keep people so they kill them.
Yeah.
Yeah, if it hadn't been Mark Duplass delivering the lines, it might have resonated more for me.
You know, if only it had been Jay Duplass.
If only it had been Heath Ledger's Joker.
But then it turns out he just adds the video to a stack of videos with names on it.
Oh,
and
he's
you're
done
like,
this countless times.
oh, okay. He is a very
sociopath.
high functioning serial killer.
Extremely
He is.
prolific.
The Raiders of the Lost Ark moment.
Oh, yeah. Dude, I
How
like
has
it.
he
when you
managed to
put it
get
like
away
that.
with all those killings? There's so many questions left unanswered. Maybe they'll be answered in Creep 2, which I assume we're watching next week.
next.
Yeah, you guys ready to watch Creep 2?
Oh shit!
It has an even better Rotten Tomatoes score than this movie.
What if-
This had a 92.
Oh, did it? Oh, never mind.
What if I told you
I'm wrong.
Creep 2 is 100% on Rotten
It does.
Tomatoes?
It does?
Yep.
What
Wow.
if I told you
Mark Duplass returns, which I did not expect.
Mark Duplass returns?
Patrick
Well,
Bryce
he's the
directs
Creep.
it again.
I mean,
Does he? Mm-hmm. Oh, he
Does he
didn't
return?
die.
Yeah,
He
not
survived.
in reality.
I would argue that Mark Duplass is more of a horror icon than Art the Clown after these movies.
Listen, did you see any fucking shitty ass paintings of Mark Duplass at Motor City Nightmares?
No, but he'll be there
I
in
rest my
person,
case.
probably.
I didn't see any shitty Terrifier paintings.
I showed you an Art the Clown painting at Motor City, or maybe I showed it to Chris.
Yeah, it
I
wasn't
forget.
me. 'Cause
I saw
I
at least
asked you
two.
specifically because I was shocked I didn't see any.
Yeah.
All right.
Anyway, and final thought on this movie: all the jump scares were obnoxious as hell.
I will agree with that.
Yeah.
I didn't like all the jump
The
scares.
jump scares were all Mark Duplass just screaming at the camera
Yeah, I don't
for
like
no
that.
reason other than literally to be a jump scare.
I haven't formed an opinion on that yet because it's almost a twist on jump scares.
Because they're like,
Because
Like,
it's
in the
Mark
reality of
Duplass,
the
like the
film.
character
Yeah.
trying to create a jump scare.
he's literally jump scaring the person that's there with him.
But it still
in real
has the
time.
result of creating a jump scare for the audience, which pisses me off a little bit.
and they didn't like make me jump at all either. They were all kind of
I
lame.
think they had that impact for me, more or less. I don't know. Let's.
I'm done with this
done with
movie.
it. Let's move on to Creep 2.
All right. Well,
Sorry, Allison.
It's okay. You guys can have your feelings. I'm not saying you're right, but I'm going to allow you to have your feelings.
I'm looking forward to Creep 2. I'm looking to see. I'm hoping.
I'm interested.
I'm hoping Creep 2 gives me more of what I
genuinely
want.
curious. I'm genuinely curious. I think it's 1 minute longer than this one, though, Steven. So prepare for like 3 to 4 breaks.
I watched this one all in one go. You'll be happy to know.
Good job.
All right, well, that's it for this week. Join us in 2 weeks. We'll be talking about Creep 2. Hope you tune in then. Until then, check us out online. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. You know where to find us. We love to hear from you.
What if they troll us?
They might get trolled back.
You guys aren't going to get trolled.
That's all for now, though. For every horror movie on Netflix, I'm Chris.
I'm Patrick, going back for some more tubby time.
I'm Steven.
I'm Allison with a Y.
See you next time.